We just gonna buy the master's house. Sit around on the porch, drink mint julep. Watch the sun go down. Pretend we's white folks.
You playing yourself, Ray.
No, you playing yourself, Rome. Cause it don't matter where you go, what you do, or what you know, you still a nigga.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to East Yesler TV. This is our very first book review, and the book we're going to review today is Dead Wrong by Randall Sullivan. It's titled Dead Wrong, the continuing story of City of Lies, corruption, and cover-up in the notorious B.I.G. murder investigation. This is the second installment, the first book being Labyrinth, pretty much based upon the work of Russell Poole. This is the second installment, Dead Wrong. So without having to force you guys to read this book, it's about 250 pages. I'm going to break everything down so that it kind of condenses everything to the most significant parts. What is lies? What is the truth? Let's get into it. Dead Wrong. Thank you for tuning in to East Yesler TV. Let's do it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to East Yesler TV. Here is the review and breakdown for Dead Wrong by Randall Sullivan. Rafael Perez failed all 5 polygraph tests he submitted in the Rampart scandal investigation. Head attorney for the Wallace family, Perry Sanders, was a musician and songwriter from Louisiana. Perry Sanders helped producing team Beats by the Pound win an assortment of copyrights from Masterpiece No Limit Records. It was the FBI that first identified the Gecko German-manufactured bullets used in the murder of the notorious B.I.G. when FBI agents searched David Mack's home after his arrest for bank robbery. The LAPD had left the ammunition sitting in the garage of David Mack without even noting its brand. The Gecko 9mm ammunition is so rare that there was not a single mention of their use in a crime in the entire FBI database, with the exception of the B.I.G. murder. Only 2 stores in the United States sold the Gecko ammunition, a store in New Jersey and another store in Corona, California. Reggie Blaylock, an Inglewood police officer, was working as part of the Puffy and Biggie security detail on the night of Big's murder. Blaylock was the trail car directly behind Biggie's vehicle. Questions arose behind the lack of information given by the Inglewood, California police officer Reggie Blaylock and his inability to chase and apprehend the suspect he witnessed commit murder. Mike Robinson, aka Psycho Mike, helped solve the 1985 killing of Sheriff Sergeant George Arthur. Mike Robinson, aka Psycho Mike, was used by LA County Sheriff's Department, LAPD, FBI, DEA, and other task forces and anti-terrorist groups, and was deemed as, quote, a reliable informant. Psycho Mike met Amir Muhammad at a Rick James party. Amir Muhammad was aware of Psycho Mike because Mike had a brother that was a hitman and hired gun on the streets that shared his same profession, paid assassin. Psycho Mike later worked for the FBI and wore a wire while attempting to gather information on Amir Muhammad and the murder of Biggie Smalls. Before Greg Kading was used to spread misinformation to the mass public, there was a LA Times journalist by the name of Chuck Phillips. One of Chuck Phillips' most infamous articles was the work titled Who Killed Tupac Shakur, a piece written in September 2002. It was the first time ridiculous lies and muddy water journalism was exposed in plain sight. The Chuck Phillips article described how the notorious B.I.G. was in Las Vegas on the night of the Tupac murder. Biggie Smalls supposedly met up with Southside Crips members at the MGM and agreed to a $1 million hit on Tupac Shakur, and further assisted by giving the Crips a gun that he wanted to use for the job. Economist Peter Formuzis estimated the notorious B.I.G.'s earning potential to be around $362 million, with punitive damages bringing the grand total to $600+ million. If the city of Los Angeles was found in any way to be involved in the murder and or cover-up of the notorious B.I.G., it would bankrupt the city of Los Angeles and destroy the LAPD. After the FBI joined in the Biggie Smalls investigation and began piling evidence that incriminated the LAPD, several meetings were had between the two historical agencies. In these meetings, talks of their long and storied relationship was discussed, and whether it was in their benefit to ruin such trust and unity between the two factions, quote, just to solve the murder of a 400-pound black crack dealer turned rapper. The name Robert Mueller, FBI director, began to appear in the email chain of memos concerning the Christopher Wallace case, proving that the investigation goes to some of the highest levels. FBI agent Phil Carson admits to seeing photos of police officers in what was described as cheap suits at the Peterson Automotive Museum the night of Biggie's murder. Phil Carson also admits to seeing photos of Amir Muhammad outside the Peterson Museum, standing close to Puffy and bodyguard Eugene Deal. Both David Mack and Amir Muhammad are deposed by the Christopher Wallace team, David Mack having $750,000 unaccounted for after his string of bank robberies, chose to remain as quiet as possible and gave little to no information. Amir Muhammad tried his best to downplay any accusations that he was anything else but a mortgage broker. Mario Hammonds, informant and partner in a small rap label called Lock Records, gave information to law enforcement that while being locked up with Suge Knight, Hammonds heard Suge admit to using Mack and Perez to carry out the hit on the Notorious B.I.G. Xavier Hermosillo, social activist and radio host, describes the troubling past and alleged corruption of former police chief Bernard Parks. Sketchy ties and collusion arise with Bernard Parks' daughter, Michelle, with a picture surfacing with Michelle, Perez, and Mack dressed in red suits and hats, and later becoming a mule to help move stolen drugs from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Hidden documents were found in the desk of Detective Steve Katz, the man that took over the LAPD investigation after Russell Poole was obstructed and dismissed. The information found in the desk of Detective Steve Katz included witness interviews and statements implicating police officers in the Biggie murder. Following the awareness of significant evidence being hidden by the LAPD, presiding Judge Cooper declares a mistrial, with legal fees and court costs for the Wallace team to be paid by the city of Los Angeles at a tune of $1.1 million. The mistrial was seen as a gigantic victory for the Wallace family, and the sequel was sure to be the nail in the coffin of all involved in the murder of one of the most iconic figures in the entertainment world. Retired LAPD officer Kendrick Knox described doing surveillance on Death Row Records during 1996 and 1997. Knox had taken photos of Rafael Perez and David Mack at the Death Row Records recording studio in Tarzana, California. Once Knox reported the information he obtained during his surveillance investigation, files were taken and his computer drives were erased. Rafael Perez was also set before a deposition in the Wallace versus Los Angeles lawsuit. Perez was said to be the centerfold for the Rampart scandal. Much, if not most, of the information that shook up the city was coming from Perez himself. The book implies that Perez was merely out for revenge on fellow officers that wronged him. The Operation Transparency Task Force was established immediately after the Wallace versus Los Angeles mistrial was announced. The task force, headed by lead detectives Darren Dupree and Greg Kading, made a soft declaration by the LAPD that the Notorious B.I.G. murder investigation was still active and ongoing. In the lead up to the Wallace versus Los Angeles retrial, LAPD officials and attorneys invoked the claim of investigative privileges in order to keep any further evidence from being discovered by the Christopher Wallace legal team. With the judge allowing evidence to be withheld from the Wallace family, the decision to dismiss the trial was made to much chagrin. Many people believed the case against the LAPD was still in their favor to win. Valletta Wallace nevertheless chose to suspend the case with some small hope of retrial in the future. Once the trial was dismissed, the Operation Transparency Task Force, led by Greg Kading, was shut down. After Chuck Phillips was humiliated and fired from the LA Times after reporting unvetted information based on fake documents, one of the next few characters chosen to lead the misinformation campaign was Greg Kading. According to the book Dead Wrong by Randall Sullivan, Greg Kading has been cited for violence, witness tampering, and waving guns at babies. U.S. District Court Judge Stephen V. Wilson threw out more than 50 federal convictions because of Greg Kading's, quote, reckless disregard for the truth. According to the book Dead Wrong, Teresa Swan is really a female by the name of Tammy Hawkins. Suge Knight owned the 6200 Wilshire Boulevard 16th-floor office building valued at $8 million. The building was transferred to Reggie Wright Jr. in 2006, right before the Death Row Records bankruptcy. The father of R.J. Bond trained Russell Poole as a cadet at the Los Angeles Police Academy. After falling out with R.J. Bond, Russell Poole started conversating with Michael Carlin. A meeting was set up with LAPD higher-ups and Russell Poole in order to go over new information in the Biggie Smalls Bad Boy Death Row investigation. The sudden death of Russell Poole at this very meeting left many questions surrounding his death that exist to this day. Little information has been released. Reggie Wright Sr. and Reggie Wright Jr. are caught and charged with drug trafficking. The book Dead Wrong by Randall Sullivan implicates Reggie Wright Jr. snitching and informing on several Memphis gangsters and getting his case separated from co-defendants in order to receive a plea deal for less time so that he and his father can escape with little to no time behind bars. At the end of the book Dead Wrong by Randall Sullivan, there is an appendix section. It says that Jesse Surratt, aka J-Mix, posted another article that focused on the shiftiest move Greg Kading had made, his attempt to turn the black Impala, driven by the Biggie shooter, into an aqua green Impala like the one that Poochie drove. What about when Jesse Surratt, aka J-Mix, and R.J. Bond tried to change the Tupac murder vehicle from a 4-door Cadillac into a 2-door piece of crap that they claimed to find at a junkyard in Arizona or some craziness? And why are you mentioning R.J. Bond and J-Mix so heavily towards the end of the book? But hey, we made it through our very first book review. We broke down some of the key points made in the book Dead Wrong by Randall Sullivan. As for my personal opinion, I was disappointed in the book because it didn't give me much more than a Google search could have done. The first installment, Labyrinth, was so much more groundbreaking, and maybe it was because of the time. Almost 20 years later, I expected some bombshells that would have hopefully propelled the solving of these tragedies once and for all, but I didn't see it in this book. I don't want to deter anybody from reading this book. I want everybody to pick up something and read. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to East Yesler TV, and I can't wait to speak to you guys again. Love.